Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Hello. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Hello, hello. I forgot to add the countdown today. I just realized that. I usually leave like, a 30-second countdown, yeah, before the live starts. I actually forgot that. Go figure, yeah. Hello, hello, everybody. How are you doing? Let me wait here a little bit to see if more people will be joining us soon enough. Here we are once again for another live here on YouTube. As you guys join, make sure you say hello, introduce yourselves, tell me where you are located, yeah, where you're from. So hello, hello. As you join, say hello, guys, and introduce yourselves. Very nice. Let's wait a little bit. Watering the pipes, always very important. I couldn't join you guys live last week, but here I am today. Yeah, today it worked. Yeah. So we're gonna be learning some English together today with a little bit of story. I have a nice story to read to you guys today. Like, ooh, people are joining here. Let me see here. Start shouting out some people. Tolik. Hello, Chago. Nice to see you again. How are you? How was your day? I'm doing well, Tolik. Nice to see you here as well. Once again, right? Welcome to the live. And yeah, all good. Today's Friday. Yeah. Looking forward to the weekend. Yeah. I've been kind of tired lately, man. I think it's the end of the year, to be honest. By this time, October, November, my brain is fried. I'm just looking for vacation already. Like, oh man, I need a break. But yeah, 2 more months and then we're going to start the end of the year festivities. So this is usually a moment where everybody kind of slows down and takes a break, right? So it's going to be nice. But yeah, all good. Hope you are doing well as well, man. Mohan, hello. Hello, Mohan. Welcome to the live. Daniel, hello. How long are you here? I just joined. Like, I don't know, 3 minutes ago. Yeah. Hello, Daniel. Welcome. Mohammed Dikari, right? Hello from Morocco. Hello. Welcome to the live. Okay, some people are saying hello. Free Eagle. Hello, Chago. It is great to see you in a live video. Yeah, good to be here. I think I remember you from a past live stream. But yeah, welcome again to the live. Ejir Soares, this is my first time live. Awesome. Welcome. Yeah. Hope you enjoy. Hope you learned something today on this fine Friday. Yes, Daniel, I just started. Okay, the live just started. All right. João Santos. My name is João. I'm from Minas Gerais, Brazil. Hello, João. Welcome to the live. Yeah, really cool. Then we have Patricia Aragão. Hello from Brazil. Hello, Patricia. Welcome to the live. Really nice. José Fernandes or Jose Fernandes. Hi, Thiago. I live in Malta, Europe. Awesome. Welcome to the live. José or Jose. Yeah. Welcome, welcome. Very nice, guys. So today we're going to be learning a little bit of English with a story, with a short story by one of my favorite authors of all time, Edgar Allan Poe. All right. Edgar Allan Poe. Do you know Edgar Allan Poe? Have you ever heard of this writer, of this American author, American writer, Edgar Allan Poe? Let me know here in the comment section if you have ever heard of Edgar Allan Poe. He was an American writer. He wrote many short stories, poems, you know. I think he never published a full novel, but he has kind of a one unfinished novel. Yeah. People are joining, saying hello. Okay. Yeah, Tolik says yes, he's a great author. Awesome. Yeah, he's awesome, man. He's awesome, especially if you like horror stories and horror stories, mysteries, thrillers. Yeah, he's one of the main authors of American literature, I would say. If you don't know him, that's fine. Yeah, you're gonna learn a little bit about him today. Yeah, we're gonna read a story. Yeah, that he wrote. Let me give you guys here a little bit of context about him. Yeah. João says, yes, I know Edgar Allan Poe. I studied him in college. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I wonder what you studied in college, João. Was it something related to English, language, teaching maybe? It's a typical subject that we learn, when we study English or, education. Yeah. Languages. Really cool. So let me read some quick information here about Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, so listen. Edgar Allan Poe was an American writer, poet, editor, and literary critic who is best known for his poetry and short stories, particularly his tales involving mystery and the macabre. He is widely regarded as one of the central figures of Romanticism and Gothic fiction in the United States and of early American literature. Poe was one of the country's first successful practitioners of the short story and is generally considered to be the inventor of the detective fiction genre. In addition, he is credited with contributing significantly to the emergence of science fiction. He is the first well-known American writer to earn a living exclusively through writing, which resulted in a financially difficult life and career. All right? A little bit about him. He died very young. He died when he was only 40 years old. Yeah, in 1849. But his body of work is known till this day. Yeah, he's one of the main figures of American literature. All right? And the story that we're going to be reading today by him is called The Masque of the Red Death. The Masque of the Red Death. All right? Yeah, guys, it's okay if you don't know him, if you have never heard about him. Today, we're going to learn a little bit more about him, you see? So learning a language is not just about learning the language. It's also about learning the culture that comes with that language and the culture of the countries that speak that language. So, yeah, I mean, you are in the right place if you have never heard a story by Edgar Allan Poe, Mohan is asking here, could you help us with some book stories to read at intermediate level? I can show you some options later, for sure. Yeah, there's a website that you can look for stories, yeah, and it's free. I can show you later, all right? Okay, guys, so let me share my screen here, right here. Can you see the PDF? Can you see the text? The Masque of the Red Death. Let me know if you can see it. Renata. Hello, Thiago. Nice to see you. Hello, Renata. Nice to see you again. Yes, welcome. Today is story time, Renata. Yeah? Okay, so I have here the story in front of you, and it's going to be very simple, guys. Today, I just want you to sit back and relax. I'm going to read this story to you first, okay? I'm going to read it. Just listen to it. Enjoy it. And then later, after I read the story, I'm going to teach you some vocabulary from the story that is highlighted there. That's it. And then if you have any questions, you can ask me more towards the end. All right? Stories are powerful because our brains are naturally wired for stories. We like stories. So I hope you enjoy this one. This one is one of those dark stories. I like dark stuff, like horror stories, mysteries. But basically, to give you some context here, in the story, there is a disease, there is a plague called the Red Death, and then there is a rich prince who hides in his big palace, in his big castle, among with many of his friends. They are hiding from this plague, from this disease, the Red Death. But let's see what happens, all right? Just to give you some context for the story, all right? So let's get started here. Sit back, relax, and I'm going to start reading it for you, all right? Here we go. Make sure you follow along, yeah? Starting right here, all right? So, listen. The Red Death had long been feeding on the country. No sickness had ever been so deadly, so great a killer, or so fearful to see. Blood was its mark, the redness and the horror of blood. There were sharp pains, and a sudden feeling that the mind was rushing in circles inside the head. Then there was bleeding through the skin, though it was not cut or broken. And then death. The bright red spots upon the body, and especially upon the face of the sick man, made other men turn away from him, afraid to try to help. And the sickness lasted, from the beginning to the end, no more than half an hour. But Prospero, the ruler of that land, was happy and strong and wise. When half the people of his land had died, he called to him 1,000 healthy, happy friends, and with them went far away to live in one of his palaces. This was a large and beautiful stone building he had planned himself. A strong, high wall circled it. This wall had gates of iron. The gentlemen, after they had entered, brought fire to heat the iron of the gates to make them close so firmly that nobody could open them. Here, they could forget the sickness, the Red Death. They would leave the outside world to care for itself. Prospero had supplied everything they needed for pleasure. There was music, there was dancing, there was beauty, there was food to eat, and wine to drink. All these were within the wall, and within the wall they would be safe. Outside the wall walked the Red Death. It was near the end of their 5th month there that Prospero asked his friends all to come together for a dancing party, a masquerade. Everyone was asked to come dressed in fine clothes and with his eyes, or perhaps his whole face, covered by a cloth mask. It was a scene of great richness, that masquerade. There were 7 rooms in which Prospero's friends danced. In many old palaces, the doors can be opened in such a way that rooms like these, 7, can be seen all at the same time. In this palace, it was different. Little more than one of them could be seen at one time. There was a turn every 20 or 30 yards. To the right and left, in the middle of each wall, was a tall, pointed window. The windows were of colored glass, of the same color that was used in each room. The first room had blue cloth hangings on the walls, and blue were its windows. The second room had wall hangings of that blue-red known as purple, and here the windows were purple. The third was green, and so was the glass of the windows. The fourth had hangings and windows of yellow, the fifth of white, the sixth of violet. But the 7th room had hangings on the walls made of a rich, soft cloth which was black, black as night, and the floor, too, was covered with the same heavy black cloth. In this room, the color of the windows was not the same. It was red, a deep blood color. All the rooms were lighted through the outside windows. The resulting light was strange indeed, as it colored the shapes of the dancers. But the light that fell on the black hangings through the blood-colored glass was the most fearful of them all. It produced so wild a look on the faces of those who entered that there were few of the dancers who dared to step within those dark walls. In this room stood a great clock of black wood. Gently it marked the seconds as they passed, and when it was time to mark the hour, the clock spoke with a loud, clear voice, a deep tone as beautiful as music, but so strange that the music and the dancing stopped and the dancers stood still to listen. And then, after another 60 minutes, after another 3,600 seconds of time, of flying time, the clock struck again, and the dancers stopped as before. Nevertheless, it was a happy and beautiful masquerade, and you may be sure that the clothes the dancers chose to wear, their costumes, were strange and wonderful. The dancers looked like the forms we might see in troubled dreams, and these, the dreams, danced softly through the rooms, taking the color of the rooms as they moved. It did not seem that their steps followed the music, but that the music rose from their steps. But into the seventh room the dancers do not go, for the red light coming through the windows and the blackness of the wall hangings make them afraid, and he who enters hears more deeply the striking of the great black clock. But the other rooms are crowded, and in them beats hotly the heart of life. And the dance goes on until at last the clock begins to strike 12. Again, the music stopped. Again, the dancers stood without moving, while the slow striking sound continued. Before the clock was quiet again, many in the crowd saw that in the first room, the blue room, there was a masquerader who had not been seen before. As they talked softly to each other about him, a feeling of surprise spread through all the dancers. Then, a feeling of fear and of sickening horror. In such a group as this, only a very strange masquerader could have caused such a feeling. Even among those who laugh at both life and death, some matters cannot be laughed at. Everyone seemed now deeply to feel that the stranger should not have been allowed to come among them, dressed in such clothes. He was tall and very thin, and covered from head to foot like a dead man prepared for the grave. The mask which covered his face, or was it really a mask? The mask which covered his face was so much like the face of a dead man that the nearest eye could not see the difference. And yet, all this might have been acceptable, but the masquerader whom nobody knew had made himself look like the Red Death itself. His clothes were spotted with blood, and the mask over his face was covered with the terrible red spots. Or perhaps it was indeed his face. When Prospero looked upon this fearful form, he was first filled with terror, and then with anger. "Who dares?" he cried. "Take him, seize him, pull off his mask, so that we may know who we must hang at sunrise." Prospero stood in the blue room when he spoke these words. They sounded through the 7 rooms, loud and clear. At first, as he spoke, some of the dancers started to rush toward the strange masquerader, but they stopped, afraid, and no one dared to put out a hand to touch him. The stranger started to walk toward the second room. He passed within a few feet of Prospero, who stood still, surprised. And while the dancers moved back from the center of the room, the stranger moved quietly, without being stopped, with a slow and measured step, through the blue room, to the purple room, through the purple room, to the green room, through the green to the yellow, through this to the white, and then to the violet room. As the stranger was entering the seventh room, Prospero suddenly and angrily rushed through the 6 rooms. No one dared to follow him. He held a sharp knife high over his head, ready to strike the stranger. When he was within 3 or 4 feet of the stranger masquerader, the stranger turned and stood silent, looking firmly into Prospero's eyes. There was a cry, and the knife dropped, shining upon the black floor, upon which a minute later, Prospero himself fell, dead. The dancers then rushed into the black room. The strongest of the men tried to hold the masquerader, whose tall form stood beside the black clock. But when they put their hands on him, they found inside the grave clothes no human form, no body, nothing. Now they knew that it was the Red Death itself that had come in the night. One by one the dancers fell, and each died as he fell. And the fires died, and the clock stopped. And darkness and decay and the Red Death ruled forever over all. Whoa, nice. I love this story, man. So cool, man. Really cool. So there you go, guys. This is the Masque of the Red Death. It's a short story. All right. Let me know here if you could follow the story. Let me know. Let me pull out my screen here again. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think? It's like, not like that. Daniel, it's difficult for me. Yeah, no worries. It's a matter of, getting used to the story as well, the language. But yeah, it's all practice. Did you understand the end? Like they were hiding from a disease, right? From a plague called the Red Death. But then actually what happened was the disease itself, dressed like a masquerader, entered the party and killed everybody there. Yeah. Patricia says, I tried to read along. Yeah. Yeah, guys. Yeah. It's an amazing story. Yeah. I'm glad you liked it, Mohan. Yeah, it's fun, right? I like to read stories like that because, I like to play with the voices, like if you are describing something more terrifying, you can go more like this and you can pause and you can do that. I like that. Free Ego is saying something interesting. I tried to shadow your way of speaking. That's why I couldn't concentrate on the meaning. That is a good point, actually. Because, guys, when you have a text, like a book or a story, there are 2 ways to practice with it. If you want to practice reading for the meaning, it's better for you to read silently, with your mind. Yeah, because your focus is on understanding the story. Okay. But you can also use books and stories to practice speaking and pronunciation. In that case, your focus is more on the sounds, on making the sounds, not necessarily on the meaning. That's fine. Just make sure you use both approaches, right? Because ideally, you also want to practice reading a text and a story and understanding the meaning. But that's all right. I mean, this live is being recorded, and then later you can watch it again. You can listen to me reading the story again, but then you can focus on the meaning only. Yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Okay, guys, now I'm going to explain to you here some vocabulary from the story. Yeah, which is actually highlighted. So let me show you here some nice words, okay? You can add those to your vocabulary notebook. First of all, as you can see here, we have the word deadly. You see, no sickness had ever been so deadly. So if something is deadly, it kills people, okay? It's dangerous enough that it kills people, it kills things. It's deadly. So this disease here, this sickness, the Red Death, was really deadly, all right? Then we have the word fearful. This is a nice word as well. Fearful. I guess most of you understand fear, right? If you have fear, you are afraid. So fear is the noun. Fearful is the adjective. All right? So if you feel fearful, you feel fear. You feel scared. All right? That's the adjective for fear. Then we have the verb bleeding, right? There was bleeding through the skin. Well, it's a verb. To bleed is, when blood comes out of your body. Yeah, maybe you are cooking something and then you cut your finger. Then, your finger is going to start to bleed. All right. We also have this word here, which is really cool, ruler. All right. So Prospero, yeah, the main character here, he was the ruler of that land. So the ruler is the person who governs, who rules a land. Yeah, he was like the leader. Yeah, the king, let's say. But actually, in the story, he's a prince. Yeah, Prince Prospero, as I remember correctly. Oh, by the way, guys, this version of the story here, this is a simplified version. Okay. The original story is not like that because this is a very old story. Okay, if you read the original, the vocabulary is much more advanced and archaic. This version that I read to you was a simplified, adapted version to intermediate learners of English, by the way. Okay? So it is designed for intermediate, upper intermediate learners. All right? So keep that in mind. But try reading the original later if you want a challenge. Yeah, because the vocabulary is really rich. All right? Moving on here. We have a ruler, right? As I said. And then we also have palaces, right? Well, a palace is kind of a castle, right? Where kings and princes and princesses live, right? This is a nice word as well. Firmly. You see? They brought fire to heat the iron of the gates to make them close so firmly that nobody could open them. Because remember, they were trying to hide from the disease, from the sickness, right? So they were in this isolated palace. So they burned, let's say, the gates, yeah, so that they will close so firmly that nobody could open the gates, nobody could enter, So firmly is like firm, yeah, with a lot of strength in it. Then we have the word masquerade, all right? A masquerade is a party like that. It's a party where, people go wearing masks, right? You see that in some movies sometimes, usually rich people, they go to masquerades, wearing masks, or those masks that you hold with your hand, you can do it like this, you can cover your face, and then you can remove it like that, that's a masquerade. Then we have the word richness. Richness is the noun for rich. Okay, rich is the adjective. Richness is the noun. You see, it was a scene of great richness, the masquerade. So we understand that it was something really fancy, lots of beautiful people there, yeah, healthy people, right? Then the first room had blue cloth hangings on the walls, all right? Hangings is like, pieces of cloth, like curtains, let's say, almost like curtains, hanging on the walls. And each room, as you saw in the story, had a different color, right? There was the blue room, the violet room, the green room, the yellow room. And then the last room, where all turns bad at the end, is the black room, right? With the red windows, Well, we have violet, which is a color, obviously, right? As you can see here. Then we have, this is a nice word, dared. You see? It produced so wild a look on the faces of those who entered that there were few of the dancers who dared to step within those dark walls. Talking about the last room with the clock, right? Room 7. You see, few people, few dancers dared to enter that room. Okay? So when you dare to do something, you have the courage to do it. You are brave enough to do it. It's also a great word if you want to challenge someone, you know? If you want to present someone with a challenge, you can say, hey, I dare you to do this. You see that black room there? I dare you to go in there and get in it. You see? So you are presenting the person with a challenge. All right? I dare you. This word is also commonly used, actually, when somebody does something that you don't like, you know? Maybe you find offensive or you find, I don't know, you find annoying, and then you can say, how dare you? How dare you? I mean, maybe you have heard that in movies before, you know? How dare you? You know? So it's another way to use that word as well, okay? In that context. You see here the image, yeah? This is the room, right? The black room with the clock right here. And this is the Red Death, right? And everybody panicking here. Really cool. We have costumes. This is a great word. You know, a costume is, you know, an outfit, right? So to go to a masquerade, you have to wear costumes, right? Usually costumes are for characters, right? Think of children's parties, you know, some kids' parties, kids go wearing costumes, right? One boy might go wearing a Batman costume, and then another boy might go wearing a Hulk or Spider-Man costume. You see, so that's a costume, all right? Usually when you want to dress like a character, you wear a costume, okay? Halloween is full of that, right? I mean, this is October. We are in October. Halloween is coming. So it's common for people in Halloween to wear costumes, yeah, of monsters and witches and stuff. Then we have here troubled. Oops. Troubled dreams right here, yeah? Actually, I wanted to highlight only troubled. Look, right here, troubled dreams. Well, if you have troubled dreams, you can't sleep very well, yeah, because, you know, your dreams are, you know, almost like nightmares. So something troubled is something that is not peaceful, not harmonious, you know? It's troubled. It makes you uncomfortable. Yeah? This is a good word as well. Hotly, as you can see here. But the other rooms are crowded, and in them beats hotly the heart of life. This comes from hot, you know, but it means something that is lively, exciting, full of energy, you know? You see, so not the black room, not room number 7, but in the other rooms, there were people dancing, having fun. You see, in those rooms beats the hotly heart of life. You see, there was life in those rooms. It's a figurative way to say this, right? To say that all the other rooms look great, you know, they look exciting. Yeah, people were having a good time, but nobody wanted to get into the dark room. You have the last one. Then we have masquerader right here. Well, this is a masquerader, yeah? So the masquerader is a person who is wearing a mask. All right? There you go, masquerader. So masquerade is the event, is the party, right? And masquerader could be the people who go to a masquerade, to an event like that. Great word as well. Look here, sickening, sickening horror. Well, if you are sick, you are not physically well, right? But here, you see, a feeling of fear and of sickening horror. I'm using sickening horror to say that it was a scary situation, you know? So if you feel sickening horror, you feel really afraid, really scared. All right. Grave right here. Yeah. Um, Talking about the Red Death, right? He was tall and very thin and covered from head to foot like a dead man, prepared for the grave. Okay. The grave is the place in a cemetery where we put dead bodies, right? So if a person dies, you bury the person in a cemetery, you put the body in a grave. All right. That's the meaning, grave, that hole, yeah, where bodies go. Ah, this is a very nice word. Look, Prospero sees the creature, right? The stranger. He gets angry, and then he says, "Take him, seize him." Seize him is like catch him, capture him. All right. So when you see someone, you get a hold on that person and you don't let that person go. Okay. And sunrise. Well, this is pretty simple, straightforward, right? Sunrise is in the morning. Yeah, when the sun rises, the morning. All right. We have here shining, right? The knife dropped, shining upon the black floor. Can you picture the image? Really cool, yeah? The knife dropped, shining upon the black floor. The good thing about well-written stories is that they don't tell you what happened per se. They show you what happened. So you have to read the story and you have to picture in your mind the scene, So this is really cool. It plays with your imagination a lot. Grave clothes, as you can see here. These are the clothes that usually people wrap bodies around, before they're buried, almost like mummies back in Egypt, And the word decay right here, Decay is a state of decomposition, So think of a dead body, right? I mean, after a few hours and days, the body starts to decompose. So the body enters a state of decay, The body enters into a state of decay. That's it. All right. That's it, guys. So these are some words from the story. Yeah. And this is a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. Again, this is a simplified version. And there is the original version. And I really challenge you to look it up later and read it. It's fun. Let me just go back here. Really cool. And I have to show you the website where you can find stories, right? Just give me a second here. Let me see if I can get that. I'm going to show you in a bit. Yeah, right here. Okay. Let me see. All right. Yeah. Look, I don't know if you guys know this website, but I gotta show it. Yeah. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see the website? Let me know. Let me know here in the chat if you can see it. Can you see the website, guys? Okay, great. So this is a website called Project Gutenberg, as you can see here. Look, it's a library of over 75,000 free ebooks. So, to those of you who are learning English, I highly recommend you come to this website and download some stories for you to read. There are many classics here, all right? Here you have the newest releases, as you can see. Here we have some categories. You see, most popular right here, we have Frankenstein, Moby Dick, Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, Alice in Wonderland, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. You see, Beowulf, right? So imagine you want to read, I don't know, Moby Dick, yeah? So you're going to come here, you click on it, and then you see, you can download the ebook to your Kindle or to any e-reader that you have as a plain text, or even if you prefer, you can just click here on read now. And there you go. You can read from your browser right here. This is the whole book. Yeah. The Moby Dick book. You see? Right here. So you can start reading it. Yeah. You can download it. You can print it. You know, chapter 1. You see? Really cool, isn't it? So take advantage of this website. I mean, I think what they do is, they take stories and books that are already in the public domain, and they compile that and they make it available here for you to download. Yeah, all these are in the public domain already. So, you can just come here and enjoy, have fun. All right. So many stories you can download now. All right. Let me see here some of the comments that you guys have. Yeah, see if there's anything interesting for me to address. Daniel says, to be honest, I understand more when I watch something without subs. Yeah, I mean, you have to, try different approaches, right? We were reading today, right? So maybe that means that you listen better than you read, So it's just a different way of practicing, yeah. But it's important to read stuff as well. Sarah, I also imitate you whenever I watch your videos. Yeah, good practice. But remember, guys, if you are imitating, if you are shadowing, it's very hard to pay attention to the story. Okay, so make sure you practice both ways. If your focus is on pronunciation, okay, imitate, shadow, no problem. If you want to understand what is being said, better to just listen or just read. Okay, doing two things at the same time is not gonna, you're gonna do one or the other. Yeah. Shake. I really like the way you teach, from Gambia in Africa. Thank you. Yeah. Glad to have you here. Yeah. Good. Okay. Patricia says that she got pretty much everything. That's great. Awesome. Yeah. Glad to know. Yeah. Yeah, a tooth decay. Yeah, that's another way to use the word, because decay is decomposition, right? Decomposing. So you also have a tooth decay. Yeah, when your tooth starts to rot, and then if you don't do anything about it, it falls off. Yeah, you gotta go see the dentist. Tolik says, right now I'm reading short stories by the famous author Roald Dahl, but he also wrote many interesting children's stories of medium difficulty. Nice. Yeah, really cool, man. Let me do a quick search here. You said Roald. Let me see here. Yeah, he was a British author. Really cool. Really nice. Yeah, you see, that's another name there that you guys can look into. Yeah. He wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Tolik. That's cool. Nice. I think there is an original version of the, an original movie adaptation, right? From the 70s. And then Johnny Depp did another one, yeah, in the 2000s, yeah? But the book came first, right? Yeah, Project Gutenberg, yeah. Renata says, I'm afraid I will have nightmares tonight. Oh no, it's fun, Yeah, you're gonna dream with the Red Death, the Red Death coming for you. Sarah, I already knew all the words you explained. What do you think my level is? I also understand pretty much everything you say. I don't know, Sarah. Maybe B1 to B2? Because like I said, I mean, this story was adapted to intermediate learners, you know? So maybe you are already an intermediate to a pre-intermediate learner, B1 to B2, you know? If you understand everything and the words as well, you know? Maybe even B2 level, all right? Might be worth taking a test, actually. Take a formal test to really be sure of your level, you know? Cool, guys. Now I have a few minutes for questions if you guys want to ask me any questions now before I go. So feel free to ask questions if you want now, yeah, in these last minutes while I water the pipes. But Sarah, just going back to what you shared here, look for the original version of the story then. You know, go to Google later. The story is called the Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe, right? Original version. Read the original version. It's going to be much more challenging, I guarantee. Okay? All right. Let's see here if we have questions. Do you have any questions today? Have any questions for today? Ah, Sarah, there you go. So, you know, you already took the Cambridge placement test. The estimated level was B2. So, yeah, probably you are at that level already. So, maybe it means that you could focus more on B2 to C1 language, you know? And I'm sure that you're going to find C1 level materials and vocabulary much more challenging. You might consider maybe buying a course book that prepares you for Cambridge C1, you know? But keep that in mind. You have to be working with language between B2 to C1 to feel a little bit of challenge. All right? Free Ego, do you suggest any website that we can use to evaluate our level of English properly? My opinion on this is exams. You know, I mean, the best way, I mean, you said properly, right? Take an exam. Take a Cambridge exam, maybe Cambridge B2, or IELTS or TOEFL, you know, but do a test like that, a proficiency test. If you're looking for something quick, I know that there are some online exams now that are quicker. You do them digitally. Might be a good starting point. Yeah. But look for a proficiency test to take. And remember this, the longer the better. Okay. The longer the better. Yeah. Ideally, the test should be 3 hours, you know, 3 to 4 hours. Yeah. 1 hour is fine, but it might give you an idea. But, you know, you really want to test your English with a long exam and an exam that tests all your skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Okay? Jose says, I would like to recommend to all Macmillan readers. Yeah. I mean, Macmillan has a series, right, of famous stories at greater levels. Macmillan readers, I think Penguin readers as well, you know. You can do that, guys. You can search for famous stories, but for intermediate level learners, for advanced level learners, you know. I don't know. Imagine you want to read Dracula, but you know, reading the original Dracula might be challenging for you if you're not advanced yet. So, you know, just search for a version of the story that is designed for English learners. Yeah. So they simplified the language and you can still enjoy the story, you know? Wow, that's an interesting question. Uh, what is your advice to a young English teacher? Never stop learning. All right. I really believe that the best teachers are the best learners. Keep that in mind. You know, the best teachers are the best learners. So never stop learning. Yeah, I mean, we never get to a point where we know everything and we know all the words in English. We know all the. I mean, I'm learning new words till today, and I've been doing this for 20 years. Yeah. So that is one piece of advice I would say. Um, I recommend also something more practical, right? Start teaching beginners. If you are inexperienced, start with beginners, pre-intermediate learners, gain some confidence and skills teaching, you know, and then as you feel more comfortable with that, you can start taking intermediate learners, upper intermediate learners, advanced learners, you kind of build up like that, you know. And if you haven't done this yet, do a proficiency exam. Okay. If you want to teach English, I recommend you take the Cambridge C1 exam or even the Cambridge C2 if your level is solid already. But you should have at least one proficiency certificate proving your overall level of proficiency. It's going to even help you with jobs and stuff, So that's what I would say. All right. But good luck. Yeah. It's fun being a teacher. Yeah. Sarah, to improve speaking skills, which would work better, reading aloud or listening to podcasts? For speaking skills specifically, Sarah, I think reading aloud. Reading aloud because, you have to practice vocalizing the words, But of course, I mean, you kind of have to listen to English as well because English gives you the input, and then you notice how the words are pronounced. Let's say the listening is the receptive skill, but you also need the productive or production skill, which is speaking. So to practice speaking, reading aloud is better, but you don't want to forget listening because listening gives you input. You hear pronunciation of the words, rhythm, time, pacing. Okay. But do both. Do both. Get the input from the listening and practice reading aloud. I think reading aloud is a great exercise. Great exercise. Just like I did today. I read aloud this short story to you guys. I mean, this is great practice, reading aloud. Yeah. You practice breathing, you practice intonation, you practice pronunciation, and I think it's a useful skill to develop as well. In my experience, I mean, there are people who they can't read aloud, or when they read aloud, they sound so boring. Like there's no emotion in their delivery, So you can practice that, You can practice like this: pick a text or a book, and at home read aloud, imagining that you are reading to an audience who cannot see the text. Okay. So if I were reading this to an audience who cannot see this, how would I read it? How would I use my voice? You see? But yeah, it's a great practice for speaking. Patricia, good question. Can I teach if I have a B2 level of English? Yes, absolutely. If you have a B2 level of English, I'm sure that you can already teach beginners, pre-intermediate learners, and then of course, I mean, as you start teaching beginners, lower levels, keep improving your English because ideally you want to get to at least a C1 level later, C1 to C2. And then, you can even teach more advanced levels if you want. But with a B2 level, you can work with beginners very well already. Absolutely. And there are many, if you are in Brazil, there are many English schools that would accept your level of English at B2 to teach beginners. It's a matter of doing some research and getting in touch with them. All right. But yeah, you can. Beginners. All right. Because, to teach advanced levels, you gotta obviously be more advanced. Yeah. But, you work up to it. Yeah. I mean, that's what I did. I started with beginners many years ago. And then as my English got better and as I gained more experience with students and classes, and, then I started to teach higher levels. And nowadays I prefer to teach higher levels. I like to teach intermediate, upper intermediate levels, and advanced levels. I don't teach beginners nowadays anymore because it's not my favorite level to teach. You also have to check that. I mean, what is your favorite level? There are teachers who are very happy teaching beginners. They like to help students, who are really elementary, getting those first sentences out. So see which one you prefer, which one you like. All right. But there is room for both. Yeah. Jose, you are an excellent teacher. I follow you a long time and I admire you. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for following. Means a lot. Daniel, you learned English without going abroad, right? Yeah. Yeah. I didn't go abroad to learn English. All the English I acquired was in my home country, was in Brazil, you know? And I did that at a time where we didn't even have internet as we have today. There was no AI, no Netflix, I had DVDs and books and magazines. So, but I think for me, what helped a lot as well was work. You know, I improved my English a lot working. I had many work experiences that required using English. So, working with English every day also, helped me develop the language skills. But yeah, I didn't go abroad to learn English. Mustafa, how can I improve my English pronunciation? People say shadowing, but I don't know how to shadow correctly. My favorite way to do shadowing is listening, pausing, repeating. Okay? Some people say for you to listen and shadow at the same time, like simultaneously, as you are listening to a person speak, you try to speak at the same time. That works for some people. Not my favorite approach. I always prefer to listen to bits, like, listen to a phrase or two phrases, pause, repeat. Then go back, listen to that again, pause, repeat. Try that, and it's a process. You might also want to try music. Singing to your favorite songs also helps with pronunciation a lot. Music has a lot of repetition. It is emotional because, you're listening to your favorite song. So also try working with music, singing along your favorite songs. All right? Free ego. Best teachers are the best learners. I believe that is the reason you are the perfect teacher. Thanks, man. I feel lucky to have the chance to hear your valuable advice. Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, it's amazing what the internet and technology makes possible nowadays, right? Wow, guys. All your questions today are about English teaching. I mean, you know, teaching English, and it's interesting. Yeah. Hi, Chag. What do you think of the English teaching in the university? It generally is a failure because of the university systems. Almost nobody finishes it with a solid English level. Look, yeah, in my experience, I mean, I remember when I went to university, I mean, ideally you want to have a good level of English already. If you go to university hoping that you're going to learn English there, not going to happen. Ideally you want to have a good level already, at least in Brazil. I don't know in other countries, maybe in other countries that might be different. Yeah. If you guys are from other countries, by the way, you can share here in the chat how it is. But in Brazil, you don't learn to be fluent in English university. You don't. Even people who study to be teachers, yeah, they graduate as teachers, but they have to learn English through other ways. Yeah, not just depend on university, because it just doesn't happen. Yeah, at least in my experience, I've never seen that. You know. Tolik is asking a good question. When I have a long conversation with someone, I start to fill my speech with filler words like you see, and so on. Should I try to use them less? Yeah, ultimately, yes. But remember that filler words can be useful. I think that filler words are really useful if you are still developing your fluency. If you are still developing your fluency, if you don't feel very confident to speak, you want to have more flow in your conversation, filler words can help you because it makes you sound more natural when you go, oh, yeah, you know, so, well, but ideally is as you progress, you want to use them less. You want to embrace the pause more. You want to give yourself time to think for a few seconds, then say something. Much better than trying to fill the silence or the pause with a filler. I am certainly guilty of this myself. I mean, because it's also a habit. For example, I use a lot. Is my favorite filler. If you guys watch my videos, I guess you have already seen me use many times. So this is something that I try to be mindful of. You see, I just used it. Did you hear that? I just used it. I try to be mindful of, you know? So for me, it's a hard habit to break. I have to be mindful of it, and I have to be kind of focused and deliberate not to use it. But what I find in myself is that if I'm tired, if I'm starting to feel tired, then I start using more fillers. So it's also connected to that. That's why nowadays I've been preferring to film my videos for YouTube in the morning. I used to film them at night, but by nighttime now, I feel so tired that, it's better to do it in the morning. So in the morning, it's better. I just woke up, I just had my coffee, my mind is fresh. Then I can concentrate on just delivering the message without many fillers. But I noticed that in myself. Like if I am tired or getting tired, I tend to use more fillers. So it's that self-awareness that you got to develop. But yeah, I would say if you're still developing your fluency, use them. They can help you develop your flow. But after a while, you want to depend less and less on them, and either embrace the pause more, the silence, or look for substitute words to say what you want to say. Instead of the filler, you say a specific word. All right? Oh, look at that. Rakan, right? Hello, Chag. I don't know if you remember me. I've asked you before about which major in college I should enter. Now I've made my mind. You're going to take English and translation? Awesome. Good luck. Yeah. I hope your parents and your family supports that decision. Yeah. And good luck. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do something that you enjoy doing. Yeah. So that's great. Awesome, man. Awesome. Good news. Good news. What do you think about spending 4 years studying English nowadays? I still like it, to be honest. Guys, I am old school. I am old school. I mean, I'm not that young anymore. I know I look kind of young, hopefully, but I'm not that young. I am old school, man. My opinion is the most important things in life take time. Okay? The greatest things in life take time, take effort, take energy. Okay? I don't believe in promises of quick wins, like, be fluent in 1 year, how I learned English in 3 months. I mean, for me, this is all clickbait stuff, you know? So to me, spending 4 years studying English is perfectly reasonable. 100% reasonable. I would say even more. You know, I like to say that if you really want to be at a solid English level, you want to give yourself at least 3 to 5 years of studies and practice. Of course, you have to be careful with how you are practicing. Yeah. Maybe a teacher could help you with that, with the direction there. But from scratch, at least 3 to 5 years, I would say, of studies, for it to become really solid. Yeah. But then again, this is me, right? I mean, to me, it's important to reach as much proficiency as possible and as much fluency as possible. For other people, it might not be the case. Maybe for somebody, just, being able to travel, ordering food, buying a gift at the gift shop is enough. So if for a person like that, that person doesn't have to spend years studying English, with a very focused plan of 1.5 years to 2 years, the person can get to this operational travel English. No problem at all. So it goes back to your goal. Yeah. But to me personally, 4 years, not only is it reasonable, it's the minimum you should give yourself, to really develop your chops, you know? I mean, I had a fluency discovery call this week, and the student told me this. He started studying English from scratch, from zero, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, okay. Nowadays he's speaking very well, and I placed him at a intermediate level, like solid B1 level, going to B2 in 3 years. And he even told me that when he started 3 years ago, he was hoping or he was expecting that it was going to be fast, it was going to take him like 1 year. And then he realized himself as he was saying, like, oh man, yeah, 1 year is not going to be enough. I need more time. Yeah. So 3 years later, now he is at a solid B1 level and he's working towards B2. It takes time. It takes time. All right. I was watching a movie last night without subtitles and I almost understood everything. Words and grammatical structures. Awesome. Very nice, Sarah. Celebrate that. This is a win for you in your journey. Celebrate that. Be happy about it because, yes, you are definitely on the right track if you are starting to understand things without subtitles like that. How come? Hello, Thiago. My level of English is complicated. Listening B1, speaking B2, reading C1. Wow, all over the place, huh? Writing A2. Recommend anything to improve? I would recommend focusing on developing the skills that you are weak at. Like, if your writing is A2 level, that's an indication that you need to write more. So practice writing different kinds of texts, essays, reports, articles, reviews, proposals, emails. Ideally, you want to get another teacher, a fellow teacher, to look at your texts, to give you feedback and to correct. That's it, And don't be embarrassed to do that, just because you are a teacher, it does, again, yeah, you see, we never stop learning. Yeah. So, for example, one of my, fellow teachers lately, she asked me to take a look at some of her writing tasks because, she's a teacher. She's an experienced teacher. She speaks very well already. Yeah. She has an advanced level of English, but she's been preparing for the C2 exam from Cambridge. So she asked me to take a look at some of her C2 writings to give her feedback and some corrections. It's fine. So do that. If her writing is at A2, you need to write more and ask another teacher to help you with feedback on your writing and correction. That's one thing that I would say. And about listening, being B1, listen to more authentic material. By authentic material, I mean, real media, right? Movies in English, TV series, podcasts, and maybe learn connected speech, because a huge part of understanding native speakers is being familiar with native speech, connected speech patterns, you know? So learn how they connect the sounds, yeah? And then you're gonna start understanding better, okay? But that's what I would say. I mean, you're speaking and reading, they are at a good level already. So just focus on the listening and the writing, you know? Try to bring them up a little bit more, all right? If you can bring your listening at least to B2 and the writing to B1, then you have more of a well-rounded type of English, I would say, you know, between B1 to B2 and the reading more C1 level. That's fine. But, you know, I think that having one skill as C1, like reading, and another at A2, that's too much of a gap. So you definitely want to close that gap a little bit to be more, like I said, balanced in your skills. But it's a good question. Felix. Thank you so much, Thiago. I really appreciate you and your work. You give me so much motivation. You also want to thank other amazing Brazilian teachers for inspiring you to keep learning. Yeah, yeah, I have to say, I mean, there are some wonderful teachers out there doing wonderful work, you know, and you guys are lucky. You know, you guys are lucky because, you know, nowadays it's so easy to find good teachers online on YouTube, you know. I wish I had, you know, access to teachers like that when I was learning, you know, like 20 years ago. But, you know, it's the time, right? Really cool, guys. All right, all right. How come? If you got IELTS 5.5, that's a B1 level. Okay? 5.5 on IELTS is B1, not B2. As I remember correctly, B2 would be 6 or 6.5. Between 6 and 6.5, that'll be B2. 5.5 is still B1. Okay? Poe, what a legend. Red Death is one of those stories. It's special. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I love it. Really cool, man. All right, guys. Great. Great. That's it for now. Yeah. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on this fine Friday. I hope you enjoyed The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe, the simplified version that I read to you today. If you want a challenge, look up the original version and read it later. You're going to find some really cool advanced vocabulary there. And use the website, Project Gutenberg, to download free ebooks and stories to practice your English with books. All right? Thank you very much, and enjoy the weekend. And hopefully I'll talk to you guys again live next Friday. All right? I'm signing off, and see ya.